Welcome to Herf Zone Live, the show that is unlike any other cigar show where we have the most eclectic lineup of guests, of which some smoke cigars and some who don't. Either way, we bring you the best content weekly. Herf Zone Live is sponsored by StogieLives.com. If you're looking for a social media site just for cigar smokers, make sure you check out StogieLives.com. Awesome stuff on there, awesome people. You can connect with people from all over the country without the political stuff that you got to deal with on other social media sites. And if you look down in the description below, partner up with Stogie Press and Ace Prime Cigars to raise money for the people of Jalapa, Nicaragua. So if you click down in the description there, you'll see all the information that's needed. Well, I hope everybody has had an awesome day today. We have an awesome show lined up today. I got a few consumers, three of them, two of them in the background right now, but we're going to be talking cigar shop pet peeves. So if you're tuning in right now, you could also, leave comments and everything. I will share them. What's up, Uncle Larry? How you doing, brother? So I will share any comments. This is basically going to be a show of talking about whatever cigar shop pet peeves that you have. So without further ado, waiting patiently in a Cigar Hustlers podcast green room, I have Keanu or Canoe, I guess that's how you pronounce his name, and Zach Man. And so yeah, welcome to the show, guys.
How's it going?
It's going. So
How's it
yeah,
going, everybody?
it's going.
Every day's a blessing.
Thank you guys for coming on. We got Julio on the way. I just told him to join. We gotta get started. So let me just let's start off with you, Canoe. Tell us about how long you've been smoking cigars. What you like to smoke. Just give us a little introduction of yourself.
Yeah, so I've been smoking cigars for probably about like 4 years, something like that. And I smoke typically 3 to 5 a day. And I usually like the kind of stronger full body stuff, but I change it up. I don't really have any sort of preference.
Awesome. Now, what about you, Zach? Give us a little brief introduction of yourself.
All right, so I've been smoking cigars now on a regular for about 8 years now. I tend to like the medium to full-bodied cigars. That's really up my repertoire. I used to be a co-owner of a cigar lounge out in Glendale, Arizona called I Spy Cigars Club. I co-owned that for about 2 years. Now I'm just a regular cigar smoker, just like anybody else, and I'm enjoying it.
Awesome. Awesome. So we're gonna be talking cigar lounge, cigar shop pet peeves. Shouts out to everybody that's tuning in already. So make sure you leave comments on anything because I'm just kind of winging it at this point. I used to be one of the super prepared people, but I got brief notes in front of me. So let's get started here. So you walk into a cigar shop and you got the staff member. Have you ever felt like not welcomed in a cigar shop ever?
Um, I feel like I have, and I'm obviously not going to name the shop, right? But I walked
Shut
into a
up.
shop and I was greeted, but then that was pretty much it, and
I
I
said
was
shut
kind of
up.
walking around. Oh, okay, oh,
All right,
cool.
that was for Palmer. Sorry, he was. Keanu was already aware.
Yeah, but I was at the shop and I was walking around for a good 5-10 minutes. I was like, is this guy gonna come up to me, greet me? That's what I need. I mean, he greeted me when I walked in, but that was pretty much the extent. So I bought something because I was in the area or whatever, so decided to get it. But yeah, so I think that was the one time. Obviously, I'm not going to name the shop, but
Yeah, most definitely. What about you, Zach?
There have been times where I've walked into a couple shops and all that, like Canoe. I'm not going to mention any shops over by name and all that, but whenever I walked in there, just I'm left all there by myself, and there's no staff member coming up to assist me or anything like that. I mean, I made it a general rule, at least in my shop, to at least go up and ask the customer, see if there's anything that you need assistance with or whatever it might be on this one. And, even if they say I'm okay with that, then just say, all right, well, I'll be right outside in case you have any questions. So it's always been a perk of mine just to make sure to go and talk to the customer immediately whenever they come in. So that way you acknowledge that they have entered in and also provide assistance whenever they need.
Awesome. Now, this is my boy Julio, aka JD. So yeah, we missed him in the very beginning of the show. Tech issues and all that. So tell everybody out there, about yourself, how long you've been smoking cigars and all that.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, Mike. It's a real pleasure to be here, bro. You know that.
Oh yeah.
Well, my name is Julio Diaz. I normally go by Jay, and I'm from the Palm Bay, Melbourne area. And I've been smoking cigars now for 7 years, and I love them.
Awesome.
Everything about them.
Awesome. Now, so the first topic we were kind of going to is like not feeling welcome, walking into a cigar shop. So Jay, how have you ever felt like not welcomed walking into a cigar shop as far as like a pet peeve goes? Like, tell us your experiences with that.
Absolutely. For example, I'm not going to drop any names of any specific places, but out of respect. But for example, I feel like when you go into a cigar lounge and you ask an owner, especially like if the owner's there and he's sitting down, which has happened to me, and you ask him a question about where a certain cigar is located, a certain cigar that you're looking for, and they're like, "Oh, it's in the back wall to the right," and you go back there and you can't find it. You go back out of the humidor room and you're like, "Hey, I didn't find it." And they're like, "It's back there. Just look." It's like, really, like, you can't get up and help me. Like, I'm trying to give your place business.
Exactly.
That's a really big pet peeve of mine.
Awesome. So let's see here. Next topic here. So Zach, you're pretty vocal. Help me out here. So what are some pet peeves that you can think of, and we can just feed off of that?
Okay, all right. So there's a couple, and I was actually thinking about that today. I'm like, well, what are some of the peeves that I had when I ran the shop and whenever I go to somebody else's shop? So the first thing that everybody always points out is whenever somebody licks their cigar before they decide to use the house's cutter. That's the one thing that always annoyed me. People would come in because they have this notion that if you lick the cigar, it somehow leads to a slower burn. But then they decide to cut it with the house cutter, and that spreads germs, and it's absolutely disgusting. Which is why I always try to catch people before they do it. Is I say, hey, why don't you cut your cigar first, and then you can slobber it as much as you like. So that's one thing that I always it always freaked me out whenever like somebody would lick their cigar. Another thing as well that I do see with a lot of shops, it didn't happen so much over with mine because a lot of my customer base, they did have similar views and all that, but politics though in cigar lounges, I definitely advise just being very careful just whenever you discuss politics on this, because you never know exactly who is going to get offended by it or start some kind of an argument, whatever it might be. I've seen in other cigar lounges to where whatever current issue is going on for that day, it just starts into a heated match and it gets very nasty and it drives away a lot of other customers and all that. And let's see. Coming up with a third one right there. Just it goes back really to, treat the customer almost like their family over to you on this, is that, make sure that they're taken care of, because they're spending money over in your establishment. They're paying for the roof right over your head and allowing you to sell cigars or even partake in cigars too. That's always something that really I've always stride for.
Most definitely. Now, cigarettes in cigar shops. Just everybody go around the table. Whoever wants to talk can talk. What's your experience been like? Going to a cigar shop. You're trying to escape cigarettes, and have you been to? Have you encountered any shops that do not allow smoking of cigarettes, or does the shops that you go to not allow or allow cigarettes?
Zach, seems like you want to say something.
May I go first on that one?
Yeah, we'll start with Zach,
Yes.
then Canoe, and then Jay.
Yeah, yes, I do. Yes, that's another thing I never like. Okay, cigarettes. Whenever I had my shop, no cigarette smoking was allowed over in the shop. And I have caught some people lighting up a cigarette before. One time, I even had he lit up a cigarette right in my humidor. I basically told this guy to get out of the shop because he didn't read the sign that said out front, no cigarette smoking allowed in the lounge. This guy looked like he was about ready to fight me. So I'm like, well, if we're going to get into something, at least take it outside. I don't want to get blood on the tile. So I'm like, yeah, that's the one thing. And usually whenever I tell cigarette smokers to put out their cigarette or show them the multiple signs in my lounge area alone, I had about 3 or 4 signs right there that said no cigarette smoking. If you can't read that, then what the heck? You're just blatantly ignoring the rules on that one. So yeah, no, I definitely do not like cigarette smoke at all inside of a lounge and all that. If it's an outdoor bar area and all that, it doesn't bother me that much. But if it's indoors, I can definitely smell the menthol on that one, and I do not like that at all.
Most Canoe, you're up next on this topic.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's kind of a big etiquette thing. So for me, whenever I've been to a cigar lounge, there's been people who are smoking cigarettes, cloves, or whatever. But usually what I've noticed is they'll kind of ask beforehand. I feel like they've kind of learned over the years, like, hey, am I allowed to smoke a cigarette here or whatever? So the few lounges I've been, well, the couple lounges I've been to, they've allowed it, but it's definitely like, because I think they feel nowadays a little bit like they kind of have to because of so many people that come in that smoke cigarettes too. I mean, cigarettes, I can't with the smell, man. I mean, the thing that really sucks too is like, cigarette smokers complain about cigar smoke, but it's completely reversed for us. I mean, I was at an open bar outside and there's a patio where everybody was smoking and I didn't see a sign that says no cigars and no tobacco pipes. And I didn't see it. I was smoking my cigar and this lady came over, made me put out my cigar and I was like, fuck, this sucks, man.
Awesome. Jay, what about you? What's been your experience like at cigar lounges with, cigarettes and all that?
I've definitely seen a good amount of cigar lounges that do allow cigarettes. And like he was saying, maybe it is because a lot of people now smoke both. So maybe it's to keep business going. My opinion on that is when I go into a cigar lounge and I smell the cigar smoke, I'm like, like it smells great. But then I feel like smoking cigarettes, you're polluting that greatness, And for example, I went to a cigar lounge a few times, and the person that was working there was sitting there chain smoking cigarettes. And I would ask them questions about cigars, and they knew absolutely nothing. So I feel like if you're working at a cigar shop, you should definitely, a part of the job is sitting down, smoking cigars, and having some knowledge at least.
Yeah, and that kind of leads me to like the next topic about people working at a cigar lounge. They don't know dick about cigars.
Exactly, and
yeah.
What I think about cigars too is a big part of it is the social aspect of it. You sit down, you smoke a cigar, you have good conversation, and I don't like sitting there smoking a cigar and having a conversation and then getting pissed off because of that horrible cigarette smell, you know?
Yeah,
To me, it kind of just kills the vibe.
most
And
def.
it's definitely bad etiquette.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. So now we're going to talk about people working at a cigar lounge. Like, have you, you just kind of mentioned it. They're chain smoking cigarettes, but like, do you think that like kind of devalues the experience if somebody doesn't even smoke cigars at all? Period. Like,
Absolutely. That's like going to a tattoo artist who's against getting tattoos. You know, you gotta enjoy the product that you're trying to sell.
Yeah. I know somebody who worked at a cigar shop, and quote unquote, this person said, "Oh, I can't stand the smell of cigars." And it's
Get
like,
another job.
yeah, I mean, honestly, yeah, I completely feel that if you're going to work at a cigar shop, at least know the basics. Smoke a cigar here or there, just know something at least. Be able to talk to somebody about, know what they like, so that you can find influence of what they like and find other brands that they might like.
Absolutely.
awesome. What about you, Zach? Man,
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback off Canoe what he said on this one. So if somebody's gonna be working over at a cigar lounge, they do have to have the basic experience, basic knowledge though of a lot of cigars and all that. You gotta be able to briefly describe maybe a Fuente cigar or whatever it might be. And of course, you also have to partake also in smoking of the cigar, so that way you can be able to relay the information that you have gathered from your own experience and relay it over to a customer who might have questions about that. So any cigars that have come into my shop when I had it, I smoked them all. I smoked anything from the acid all the way up to, JC Newman, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's, if somebody doesn't know that much about cigars, apart from being a cigar smoker, I mean, there's always room to learn and all that. But somebody working in a cigar lounge, they have to be willing to take on the experience, because that way it assists assists the customers though in finding exactly what they're looking for.
Exactly, because you can give an opinion on everything versus just, instead of, if you smoke medium to full body, and you smoke, if you smoke every type of cigar, you can give an opinion. Like, if I want a medium to full body cigar, but then there's somebody that only smokes something like, I don't know, like a New World Connecticut that's very smooth, they can't give you an opinion on a medium to full body cigar. They're like, oh, I don't smoke those. And it's like, okay, well, that's not much help.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Even if you're going to,
it's good to have an opinion on on a variety of cigars.
yeah. Which is why I feel like when you're working at a cigar shop, it's important to,
Exactly. You got to try the whole spectrum.
yeah, you got to know like some good mild cigars, medium cigars, full body cigars, at least have some in your kind of inventory that you can help people choose from, at least something.
most definitely. Now, have you ever walked into a cigar shop? Which this has never happened to me, but I've heard horror stories about this. Have you ever walked into a cigar shop and cigars are like over humidified and and some cigars have started to grow mold on them, and then the lounge owner swears up and down that it's plume, that it's plume. Has that
Yeah.
ever happened to any of y'all?
Once.
I don't think it's happened to me. I've had reverse where the cigars were too dry, so when it got cut, the whole thing just snapped and cracked and unraveled.
Oh yeah, yeah. That actually did happen to me once. There was a cigar bar that was not that far away from where I live, and I went in there and I noticed that there was a lot of mold on the cigars and even on the humidor itself and all this. And I was like disgusted by it. I just had to walk out because I mean I couldn't be able to stand it. Come to find out, not too long after, they had beetles on their cigars and it destroyed their whole entire inventory and they went completely under. So
Ooh.
yeah, definitely having mold right there in the humidor and on the cigars, not a good sign.
Sounds
Yeah,
like
Most definitely, absolutely. So you got the guy and the people who go to cigar shops and they they're I call them moochers. They just basically show up. They might buy some like super cheap or whatever, and then just sit there for hours and hours, hog the TV, all that. Like, what's you guys' opinion on that?
I I feel like if you're gonna be chilling in a cigar shop, there's kind of a set, like, I don't want to say a specific amount that is appropriate, right? But I just feel like if you're gonna be spending 2 hours plus, buy something at least. You know what I mean? Like, even if it's just like a beer and like a $10 cigar, like, that's okay. That's cool. But if you're gonna just like, hey, I have my own cigars, I brought them in. Is it cool if I smoke them? And it's like, okay, are you gonna get a like beer or anything else? It's like, no, I don't want to spend any money. It's like, well, just kind of proper to like be there and actually, instead of taking up the entire table, actually make it a point to actually support the business.
Most def. What about you, Jay?
So actually,
Exactly. Yeah. Just
Oh, me or him?
I said Jay.
No. I actually went to again, I'm not going to mention any names, but I went to a cigar shop once where they had a barbecue. For the customer, they had burgers, hot dogs, drinks, Italian sausages, cool stuff like that. So there was a guy there. They did that every once in a while, to show appreciation to the customers. And there was a guy there that he had a reputation of buying like a $3 cigar and eating like over $20 worth of food. So he would go and he would have like he would go and buy a $3 cigar and he would eat, two burgers, two hot dogs, two Italian sausages, eating chips and dip and, ridiculous amounts of food, but he's only buying a $3 cigar. And it's like, come on, man, really? These people are feeding you and you're overeating.
Most def. Zach, have you ever counted any of these moochers? Just not even owning, being a
plenty. Where
co-owner
do
of
I
a cigar
start?
lounge.
Where do I where do I start? Let's see here. Okay. So I did have one time, there were two guys that came into my cigar lounge. And apparently we were my cigar shop, it was on the site of a bar restaurant. So basically, if we had a kiosk system to where we could put in orders for drinks and food over through the bar and then, have them brought over to the lounge, we could do that. Well, I had two guys that came into my lounge. All they wanted to do was that they wanted to buy the alcohol, and their excuse was, oh, we'll just smell your cigars. And I'm thinking to myself, BS. I guarantee you got kicked out of the bar and now you're trying to get into the cigar lounge and still get more drinks. That's like, no, guys, that's not even going to happen at all. And also, of course, I did have one time, there were a couple of guys that came in and they bought cigars from me the previous day. Well, they came in and they said, oh, we have these cigars over from the previous day and all that. Can we get some drinks and food and all that? And which I told them, I said, well, if you'd like to, why don't you buy some more cigars to take with you on the road? Because they were from out of town. Oh, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that at all. I'm like, we don't get a percentage of the bar and food and all that. We're two separate businesses and all that. At least if you're going to do that, at least I get it that there were cigars that were from the previous day and all that, but can you at least buy maybe one if you're coming in another day?
Absolutely.
I mean, to support the business, of course, it's like you got it. It's like if you're going to be bringing in your own cigars, at least buy a cigar or two from the business that you're going in because you're patronizing their business.
Exactly. Most definitely. Now here goes a hot topic right here. So this is something I was already going to bring it up, but I think it's the appropriate time now. So the guy that just sits there and he might smoke a whatever cigar, but he's always bragging about how Cubans are the best. Have you ever encountered any of those guys? That's a pet peeve of mine. So I'll start with Jay, then do Canoe, and move to Zach after that.
So with that topic, it's just it's annoying for numerous reasons. One of them is, okay, I'm here. I want to enjoy my cigar, and we can't get Cubans here. So stop going to a cigar shop and stop dwelling over it. You know, you're repeating it and repeating it and repeating it, and it just makes you sound like a joker, you know?
Yeah.
And my and you know, aside from that, my opinion on Cuban cigars is because I have smoked Cuban cigars, I would pick there's so many cigars to pick from that are so much better than Cubans. Like for me, like an AJ Fernandez Last Call, one of my favorite cigars. I would pick that over a Cohiba. The issue is that because they're hard to get, it's a psychological thing. It's like the forbidden fruit, you know?
Yeah.
Like psychological. I mean, they just sit there and I feel like those people aren't true cigar smokers. If you limit your palate and you're like, oh, I only like Cuban cigars, that's because you don't really like cigars. You know? You're like
Yeah.
you're like a fake aficionado.
Absolutely. What
Yeah.
about you? What's your experiences, Canoe?
I mean, absolutely, man. I mean, especially working at, cigar store, I get guys coming in all the time saying, like, asking, do you have Cuban cigars? You guys sell Cuban cigars? And I'm like explaining to them, like, no, that's still going on, the embargo, no updates yet. And it's one of those things, especially when, guy's sitting in a lounge and he goes on and on and on. He's just like, oh, this $90 Cuban I had back when I was in, the Bahamas and this and that. It doesn't compare to anything in this humidor, nothing, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, oh my God, have you smoked anything else other than that? He's like, no, that was the first cigar I've ever had. It's like, well, okay. Like for me, like I'm smoking right now a Cro-Magnon Cranium, right? And the Cuban cigars I've had probably about a handful, and I gravitate towards this cigar and a couple other cigars a lot more than the ones I've had from rather that be Cohiba or a couple other Cuban companies.
Absolutely. Zach, it's your turn.
Yeah, I have gotten those folks before and all that. And the one thing that I do have to explain to a lot of people that don't know much about cigars because they think that Cuban cigars are better and all that is that Cuban cigars, they don't have their own like one flavor and all that. They have multiple brands, different flavor profiles, everything else, just like all the cigars that you get right over here. And I've smoked Cuban cigars before, and I tell you what, there's a lot of Cuban cigars that I've had that I could care less for. What you would pay for a box of Cohiba Siglo 6s, I can probably get about 6 boxes of one of my favorite cigars, the Bone Shaker Full Body Cast. So I'd rather take that. I'd rather have more cigars, than have, these Cubans and all that, which there's no disrespect to Cubans and all that. There's a lot of good Cuban brands out there that I've had before. But, the thing is that just because it's Cuban doesn't mean it's the best cigar or the best type of cigar out there, because there are plenty of cigars, thousands of cigar brands that you can get here in the United States that I've smoked before, and they've beat the $100 Cubans that I've smoked previously in the past. And I tell you what, I probably would have spent my $100 getting a couple of those sticks.
Most definitely. Now we got a comment down here. I'm gonna pull up on the screen and we'll talk about that. So he says, Uncle Larry says, my pet peeve is the one shop I go to. There's a woman that works there. She's on you like a hawk the whole time you are selecting your cigars. It's like she thinks you're stealing something. So, we talked about one extreme of, nobody greeting you in the, walking into the humidor, see if you need any help. And then people that's watching you like a hawk. Have you guys experienced any of that? Somebody watching you like a hawk, like they're scared you're gonna steal something. I'll
One
start with you.
time.
Yeah, I'll start with Canoe, and we'll kind of work our way back around, different order.
Yeah, I mean, it's happened occasionally. I definitely feel like it's that kind of sweet spot where you like check in with the customer, see if they know what they're getting. If they know what they're getting, it's like, okay. If you're browsing around a little bit though for a couple minutes, like, most cigar guys will, because, especially when a humidor has a good range, that's when like I feel like, checking up again, seeing if they're good still. And if they're good, then it's like, okay, leave it be. Let them decide what they want to get. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like for me, it's like over checking, especially when somebody's lounging, because I've had circumstance where I know somebody, so it hasn't really specifically happened to me, but I know somebody who went to a shop and they were asked every 5 minutes, and they were there for like about an hour and a half. Every 5 minutes, they counted it. If they were good, they need anything and stuff like that, which I feel like there's an extent. So it's nice that they want to take care and make sure that you're good, like you're good if you need anything and stuff like that. But if they have a full glass of, like a old fashioned that's still full, or if they have a beer or whatever, if there's still cigars, like still a good half left, I feel like that's when you should like chill a little bit and not constantly ask if they're good.
Most definitely. What about you, Jay?
So that's happened to me one time, and it was actually when I was not that far into my cigar journey. I stopped into a shop, and I went into the humidor room, and the lady that was working there, she actually followed me into the humidor room, and like literally every step I took, she was like right there with me. Like every single cigar, like every single box that I went to like look at a cigar, she was right there with me, and it was definitely uncomfortable, and I actually ended up not buying anything for that reason.
Yeah, definitely, man.
It
Like
can definitely be
that's annoying.
uncomfortable. Yeah,
There's got to be a good balance.
absolutely.
Yeah.
What about you, Zach? Have you ever experienced anything like that?
Yeah, I did experience that once. So I went to a cigar shop over in Phoenix, and just whenever I walked through the door into the humidor, I mean, I greeted the owner and all that. But the thing that really took me a little off is that he was in the humidor with me the whole time, and I'm exploring around, and he's following me very close and all this, and it didn't make me feel too comfortable, especially with I was with my fiance, so she was also a little uncomfortable and all that. But I mean, she eventually got over it because they had her favorite cigar, the Gurkha Seduction, so she was all happy and giddy after the whole thing. But I mean, to me, it's kind of a little off and all that. And I mean, whatever I did, run my shop and all that. I mean, I go into humidor first, ask a customer if they needed help, and if they didn't, then I'd go out. Now the humidor, it was a walk-in humidor. I can see it right over from the register and all that. So, I can still keep my distance and still keep an eye on just to make sure that everything's okay and all that. And whenever somebody's lounging, I'd go in and check up on them, every 20 minutes, just make sure they're okay. And if they're good, then just move on. That's about it.
Most definitely. Now, what about the conversation hogs in a cigar shop? It's like they can't get in a word edgewise. They just talk and talk and talk. You can't even get in a word in a conversation. Have you guys experienced any of that? I'm gonna go with you first, Jay.
Absolutely, for sure, and numerous times. And like I was saying earlier, to me, the cigar, a big thing about cigars is, for me at least, and I can say for a lot of people, it's a social thing. The fact that you get to sit down and have conversations with people, and basically that person is killing that because you're sitting there and you're smoking your cigar, and you have no chance to, have a conversation. You're just listening to somebody going rambling and rambling and rambling, and it can be frustrating.
Absolutely. What about you, Canoe?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, I feel like every shop has that guy that comes in and, he strikes up conversation with you, and then the conversation is not even a conversation. It's just that talking over you no matter what. And it kind of gets annoying. It's like you want to talk to this guy and you can't really conversate when he's just talking over you. And the thing that also really, some people also just, come to the shop to get away from everybody too. which a lot of the time I've noticed, especially, you know, with a lot of quieter people, you know, you sit down in a shop, you chill, you just have a cigar, beer, whatever. And, you know, you get the guys that are constantly trying to, you know, talk to them and trying to get them to talk, but obviously they're like fresh out of work. They're dead tired. And it's just like, I mean, obviously this guy doesn't really want to talk right now, man. So like, and then, you know, they go on for a straight hour trying to talk to this guy. And it's kind of like, that's one of those things that's a balance thing where you have to notice like what the healthy amount of a conversation is, you know, to talk to another person. And if they actually do want to engage in the conversation too.
Most definitely. And what about you, Zach? I'm sure you've experienced your fair share of conversation hogs.
Yes, I have. In fact, actually, one I banned over from my shop. And the reason why is just because this guy would just talk over people and just give his commentary when he didn't want to, and trying to start conversations with people that just wanted to sit down and relax. And I'd get a lot of complaints over about this guy and all this, to where one day I just said, "Get out of here. Get out of here." And then later I found out that this guy was also banned over from other shops within the area too. So I'm like, oh, maybe I should have stepped up and banned you a little sooner and all that. But yeah, I've been there, done that, got the t-shirt for it.
Actually, I think I have a one. So what about the guys that are in the cigar lounge that hate on a bunch, like other brands, like especially when you're smoking like whatever
A
brand of
Gurkha.
cigar. And yeah, and then they just are just like, oh, that cigar is shit, that entire company is shit and all this stuff.
Absolutely. I experienced that a lot. Now that I work at a shop, I'm obviously selling some cigars that I'm not really a fan of as far as, liking to smoke, but I have to take that out of the equation. Most of the time I'll explain why I don't like it, and I let people make that decision for themselves. And I've even had some people, I told people to try it and be like, you'll see why I don't like it possibly. And if you do like it, hey, more power to you. You got to decide what you want to smoke, for yourself. So
yeah,
what I really hate is there's always that person that critiques the way that you do things, like the type of cut you prefer, the way that you light your cigar, and it's like, where's the rule book?
Yeah.
Everybody likes to do things a different way. You may like the V cut, I may like the punch. So what? There's no right or wrong way.
Yeah.
You may like a torch, I may like a soft flame. Like I had somebody say, lighting a cigar with a Bic is a disgrace to the cigar. Who said that?
Have you ever been to any cigar producing countries? Because that's what they light their cigars with.
Right?
I'm Dominican.
Exactly. You've been to the Dominican Republic, brother.
Many times. I'm actually going there in July.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what you light your cigars with, a Bic.
Of course. There's no fancy, jet line, triple torch. No, you use a Bic. But there's no rule book. Everybody has their opinions, and that's fine. You don't have to critique anybody. Don't be that guy,
Most definitely.
Yeah, it's your own personal preference. It doesn't really matter. Exactly.
Yeah.
Most definitely. Do you have anything, Zach?
I used to get those folks all the time, and I still experience them too. Like Gurkha is one of my favorite lines also that I like to smoke. So I'll get some people that look at me with disdain. You're smoking those Gurkha cigars. I'm like, I don't really care. I enjoy these cigars. I like them, and your opinion, you can go shove it up where the sun don't shine.
It's okay. You can say whatever. You don't have to be polite on Herf's Zone Live. You can say shove it up your ass. I don't care.
Yeah. I feel like
I got to make sure, because I've been on other shows and I've gotten in trouble. So there we go.
I mean, with a guy named Shirtless Mike hosting this show, we can pretty much get away with, mostly whatever, within reason.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like also like the only time that I feel like it's appropriate to kind of explain differences between a cut or whatever is like when somebody's new to cigars, where it's like, I know nothing. What's that you cut your cigar with? It's like, oh, this is a V cut. This is, it's going to feel different in the mouth than a straight cut. I prefer this way, but you should try both ways. See what you like.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's all the preference of it, because
Exactly.
there's a lot of subjectivity when it comes to cigars. So like, the cut that you decide to use, what you decide to light it with, that's all subjective,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. I mean,
that's all personal preference.
yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's dead rolled up leaves, and so a lot of people get a little to it and like crazy about it. And you got to remember that it's a cigar, and there's no
Yeah.
wrong way to really smoke a cigar.
My uncle in Dominican Republic, he actually cuts his cigar. He bites the tip off. Doesn't work for me. I don't like doing it, but he does it. He enjoys it. I sit next to him whenever I'm down there, and I smoke my cigar with him, and we have a good old time. I don't care how he cuts his cigar. It works for him.
Yep. I mean,
Yeah.
that's old school anyway. Like, that's old school as fuck, bro.
That's right.
Along with the Cuban method of using your
Yeah.
fingernails. Renier
Yeah,
Lorenzo
actually,
was telling me about
a
that.
guy out here.
Go
Yeah, a guy
ahead,
that I
Zach.
get my cigars from out here and all that. He hand rolls them. He's an old style Cuban. He's an old style Cuban, and pretty basically that's how like he cuts his cigars. He just takes his fingernail and he just pulls it right off. I'm like, I can't do that. I don't have long enough fingernails to do it.
Right.
Now, have you guys ever experienced any dry beggars hanging out at cigar shops, or is it just like an online thing? Like, people, they just, they're just dry begging like a motherfucker. I've seen it a few times, mostly online. People, tend to dry beg, but it happens at cigar lounges too. Whoever wants to go can go.
I haven't seen it.
I guess I'll go first. Yeah, I've had. Yeah, I've seen it multiple times. I've actually had it happen to me. I was hanging out with a buddy of mine down in Tucson, and we went to a cigar lounge down there. And just to be nice and all that, because I hadn't seen the guy in a while, I decided to get him a Davidoff Oscuro. He took 2 puffs out of that and put it down and decided to light up a cigarette. I'm
Oh,
like, I spent $20 to get you that cigar, dude. You're not going to finish that.
oh man.
That to me was disrespectful. Another example of dry begging, which technically it doesn't constitute dry begging and all that, but that would be my fiance because she always gets her cigars off of me. So she's my number one dry beggar that I'll always give cigars to.
Well,
Yeah.
that's a little bit different. That's your fiance, and
Yeah.
whenever you buy cigars for you, and if she smokes cigars, yeah, that's hers too.
Gotta keep her happy. My girlfriend. My girlfriend once in a while she'll smoke a cigar with me, and like, I've learned to make sure that whenever she gets a cigar, I make sure I get a small one, because if she smokes like a Toro or a Robusto, she'll smoke it like halfway, if that. And when I see her put it out, it kind of hurts. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, don't hand her no Churchills.
Yeah. I mean, you get people all the time asking for, oh, like especially when I get people coming over to my house, sometimes they ask me like, oh, hey, you got a cigar I can have, blah blah blah, and it's like, yeah, sure, I got this cigar or whatever. And I feel like every cigar guy has like designated cigars in his humidor for people that come over or whatever. You know what I mean? Whether that be like some bundle cigar, something like that. And like the kind of the motto is like, as long as it has a band, they'll usually kind of be a little bit more of a fan of it. Because if you're smoking like a Davidoff or something like that, and if they have some small cigar that has no band or whatever, they're not going to feel like they're getting, a whole, not really money's worth, but they'll feel like, oh, what a good friend or whatever. But if it has a band, it changes the world for them for some reason. I mean, and the thing is, like, there's so many good cigars that don't have bands, and that kind of sucks. But you get dry beggars all the time, and so you kind of have to know designated, like, okay, this guy doesn't really smoke cigars. Let me give him this. Maybe he'll like it or not.
Absolutely. Now, I mean, this is kind of like bundles in what we were talking about earlier, but the person that, if it's a smaller cigar shop where it's a more intimate environment, and and there's like maybe like one, maybe two TVs, and they're like hogging the TV, it's like, they're watching like, some news or whatever. Like, have you guys experienced any of that? We don't really get that except for in our private lounge, because we have a private lounge, and so what's on the TVs in the main lounge is whatever's on the TV, and we don't have the sound on, so it is what it is. But just generally speaking, in a cigar shop, have you ever just had somebody just put on some whack ass shit, and it's like everybody's just forced to sit there and watch it?
I don't like me personally, like during like election time when I'm like fed up with all the politic talk, and you go into the cigar lounge and you want to relax and you want to sit down, and then somebody always voices their opinion because that's what's on TV, and then another person doesn't agree with it, and then it causes like a little debate, and it's like, come on, man, I'm here to chill.
Exactly. Do you guys get that at a Cigar Hustler Canoe?
Yeah, I mean, I've had that happen before, and like, we're the kind of place that like if you want us to put on something for you, or that be like the Golf Channel or local news, other news or whatever, we'll put it on for you. But like me personally, I don't really like to put on the news. I just feel like in any sort of like cigar shop or bar, it just doesn't really, for me personally, I just feel like it doesn't really belong because you can get different guys with two very differing opinions, but if they like the same cigar, they're going to be really good friends, at least for that night or whatever, as long as there's no political talk too, especially. So with like the TV, I usually will change it to whatever they like, but like as long as everybody in the lounge is cool with it, like this guy wants to watch golf, these two guys don't really care what's on the TV, so I'm like, okay, sure, I'll put it on or whatever.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Most definitely. What about you, Zach? TV hogs. What's your experience like with that?
I haven't really had too much experience over with TV hogs and all that, especially when I had my shop. I mean, usually a lot of the guys are in there. They all, we had two separate TVs. So if you didn't want to watch one thing on one TV, you could watch it over on the other. And we had sound going on. The only time where we would hog the TV is when we had the UFC fights. So both TVs would show the fights. And then after the fights were done, pretty much it's whatever you want to watch. So that's pretty much it. I haven't had too much experience over with TV hogs, but that would probably be like the closest thing that I've come to.
And that's nice because in a way, nobody gets left out,
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. I like the way our shop's set up. It's, our main lounge, we just have whatever's on TV. If somebody wants to watch something different, we put it on, but we don't have like the sound on, like that, because we got music playing in the background. But our private lounge, you got people out there. There's some people that will sit there and just watch political stuff, and then you got somebody that is a member of the private lounge, and they come out to the main lounge, and they're just like, oh, they're just in there, watching all this fucking propaganda, blah blah blah. It's just typical, like older people tend to act like children in a way. They're just like they're worse than kids, like when it comes to complaining and arguing and stuff like that. So now, was there anything else that you guys had on your mind that I may not have covered? Because I'm just pulling stuff out as I'm thinking of it. And anybody out there that's watching, if you want to leave a comment, I'll put it up on the screen. And then any cigar shop pet peeves, and then we'll get a couple more before we end the show. One
that I left out was when you go to a cigar lounge and you're sitting around and like I said before, it's a social thing when you're sitting around with people and you're having conversation, but everybody's on their phone and nobody's saying anything. Like a silent night, and you're just sitting around, you're smoking a cigar, nobody's saying anything.
Yep.
And it's like, man, well,
Yeah.
this is whack.
It's one thing to kind of be talking and be on your phone, but then it's one thing just freaking silent. Like, it's
absolutely
kind of eerie there.
Yeah.
Now, here's one thing that that I just thought about here. People that will go into the humidor and sniff every single cigar. Especially the uncellophane ones.
Yeah. Or even better yet, when they open the sealed cellophane cigars and rip the tag and then they just put it back.
Yeah, I
That
catch
kills it.
people. Yeah, if somebody does that, like if there's a tag on there or whatever, I'm like, yeah, you're definitely gonna be buying that.
Yeah, right.
For real.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're definitely buying that. Or whenever
One
this
pet
is me
peeve that
working
I
there.
that I do have.
Go ahead, Zach.
Oh, sorry about that. There was like a bit of a lag right over there. I'm sorry about that. Um, One pet peeve that I do have that I forgot to mention before is when people decide to bring their kids over to the cigar lounge. That's the one thing that, like, when I had a cigar lounge, whenever somebody brought in their kid, I just had to tell them, you have to leave. Unless they're over the age of 21, I can't have anybody over here in the shop. I actually did have somebody try to get into a fight with my business partner, my general manager, and I, because his kids were coming into the lounge. And his kids, number one, were being disrespectful over to my business partner. But then number two, it's the fact that he's bringing in his kids and he wants to fight all three of us because we tell him, hey, we can't have your kids over here in the lounge. If the liquor board came down here or the state were to come in here, they could shut us down because we have minors over in our shop. So it's just whenever somebody tells you, hey, whenever you get carded, or if you're told that, hey, somebody can't be inside the lounge and all that because you're under the age of 21, there's a reason why they're telling you that, because it's the law. You gotta obey the law and all that. I will give this one kid credit on this one. There was a 17-year-old kid that tried to come into the lounge one time to buy a cigar from me, and I could definitely tell that he was a minor. I was like, son, can you pull out your ID for me? And he did. And I said, how old are you? Oh, I'm 17. Well, I appreciate your honesty, but you can't be over in the lounge until you're 21 or over. Come back in
Yeah.
about 4 years, and then you can. I'll help you pick out a cigar. But in the meantime, there's the door.
Yep, I actually had somebody try. Like I thought their son was like over the age of 21. They were, I knew who they were and everything, and they actually sent their son in, and he didn't look, he looked like he was, like under the age of 21. So I had to like ask him how old he was, get his ID, and I was like, bro, I'm sorry, but you can't be coming. You can't buy cigars till you're 21. Like I know you're trying to help your dad out. He can't get in. Get over here. I was like, send your mom.
In Dominican Republic, kids go to cigar shops when they're like 8 or 9, and those countries, the rules are a little different. So they'll be like, "Hey, I'm buying cigars for my dad. He gave me the money," and they'll sell it to them.
Yeah.
Little different over there than in the States, of course.
Kids also start learn how to roll cigars in those countries at like 8 or 9 too.
Yeah.
Right.
Like especially over in Cuba, like I know Canoe knows Z from Cordoba Morales, and he started rolling cigars and working with tobacco when he was 9.
Yeah. Really
Different
cool guy.
countries, different laws.
Oh yeah, most definitely. So we're almost at the hour mark. We're like 54 minutes. So if nobody out there, watching has any suggestions, it's been a great show, man. I appreciate y'all for coming on. I should have told Canoe to shut up a few more times.
I could say a couple more random stuff. I mean, if you'd like. Wait, I'm going to continue talking. Oh, there we go.
That was for Mike Palmer, because Mike and Mike, they are, sponsors of the show. So he suggested Canoe because he's only he works at a shop, but he's only he only does a little bit of work, so he's technically just a consumer. So
I think it's so cool the friendships that you make in the cigar world. I remember the first time I met Mike a few years ago. He looked like a chubby kid with just long hair, and
I was a chubby kid with my long hair. That's before I lost weight.
Definitely didn't think that I was gonna hit it off with him as well as I did, and we've had some pretty good times over the years.
Yeah, I mean, with all the pet peeves of cigar lounges, like, real true friendships get built. I've been over to Cigar Hustler numerous times, and it's been too long. I'm planning. Me and my manager and my friend, we're planning on coming over there, like at the end of this month. So
sweet, yeah, I'll be here.
So I don't know exactly when, but I'll tell you to shut up some more, Canoe.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, working here, man, for the last like almost 2 years, it's been kind of surreal because learning about cigars through different YouTube videos, channels, or whatever, whether that be like from Bradley Reith or whatever from Zeal Cigars, or the guys of Davidoff or whatever. It's crazy because I've gotten to meet a lot of these guys that I looked up to learning cigars. It was kind of cool. Like meeting him, I got to meet Matt Booth, which was freaking surreal because that guy's he's fucking crazy.
Yeah, I love Matt Booth. Me and Matt Booth are real good friends. Like, I
Yeah,
got his
he
number. I
is.
can
He's
text
cool,
him
man.
right now.
Yeah,
That dude's wild. I
He is
love
the
Matt
bomb.
Booth to death.
he's cool, man.
Yeah. So how was that like meeting Matt Booth? Was that the first time you met Matt Booth when he came for the event?
Yeah, that was the first time meeting him in real life. There's been times I've talked to him on like FaceTime and stuff like that. It's not on my own phone because he doesn't have my number. He follows me on Instagram now, so that's pretty cool. But like, so if you go to my Instagram, it's kind of the ongoing joke here that I have some man crush on Matt Booth. So there's a picture on my Instagram where he's like has his hand against my head as we're hugging each other. He's just the funniest guy ever. He's a really cool guy.
Yes, he made me see when he came on my show. He made me stand up to show him my stomach. Yeah, I've
What, 'cause of
gotten
the Cigar Life tattoo?
that. No, he just Matt Booth is just enamored with my manly physique.
That's right.
But
Yo,
yeah,
Mike, do you
yeah,
remember that one Halloween that you and I handed out candy together?
yeah. So I'm gonna tell this story real quick before we end the show. So Julio was at my house. I was just like, I come through. Me and my buddy John and Julio, we were handing out candy, and so this girl, this had to be like 9 to 11. I don't know how old this
Yeah.
girl was, but she was like, she didn't have a costume. She said, my mom said to tell everybody I was a busted ass child.
And then she took like the whole thing, she took like the whole thing of candy and like
Not the whole
walked
thing,
off.
but she took a shit ton of candy. I was like, yo.
Yeah, she took like she put both hands in like the basket and went like this. And like, I'm like, me and Mike were just dying laughing.
I was about to have a heart attack. Like, I was like, busted ass child. But it's true, she was a busted ass child.
Busted ass child.
For real.
Well, shoot, it's been a good show. I appreciate you guys for coming on. Everybody that's tuned in, everybody that's
Thanks for
going to
having
tune
us.
in. Hold on, Zach keeps losing connection. I'll put him back on. So, yeah, so I appreciate you guys for coming on and being part of the consumer panel. It's the first consumer panel that I've done. I just wanted the people who are just everyday consumers, not the cigar celebrity consumers. People that I know that are just regular consumers to give their honest opinion. So, yeah, so everybody that's tuning in, thank you guys so much. And if this is your first time watching, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Everybody that's watching later, make sure you subscribe and share the show. We are almost at 500 subscribers on the Team Shirtless Mike YouTube channel. And man, it's been a ride for sure. There's been some weeks that I couldn't do a show due to whatever circumstances, but we're chugging along, and I'm definitely known now. So yeah, so everybody, you guys have a great night. I'll let you guys know when we're not live and we can talk that real shit.